what I've done so far, so it explains itself. I've used masking fluid to mask out the sun and its reflections, and I've used a brush with soap on it to apply it, just to pick up, so both highlights, edge of the beach, and haven't defined this horizon yet. So now I can wet the whole painting if it is tacky, and so once it's gone off, so it's sticky but it's dry, I can now wet this and it won't move. So this hake is so I can wet the whole paper in the usual way, let it soak a bit while I get the colours ready, and I'm going to make the sky a little bit deeper. And this photograph was taken just before sunset, so it's late evening on the beach. This is actually in Wales, in Pembrokeshire, and the colour in the sky was perhaps a little bit deeper, but what it's done is the colour in the beach has come up perhaps a little bit darker than it really was. It's always a compromise with a photograph. So as an artist, I'm going to try and get a better balance between the colours. I'll start with the most delicate colours. So in the sky we've got yellows. So I'm going to start with cadmium yellow, warm yellow, but very pale, to put through here beneath the sun. I'm just going to build it up gently, and I'm also going to put this cadmium yellow, again very diluted, in the sky around here. And later on I'll have to come back and soften that out. Just going to tilt it a bit so it doesn't just run too much. Bring it in closer. So now I'm also looking for any other areas of yellow. And there's bits of yellow in the beach, but not bright yellow, but this will make a perfect basis for it. The figure, by the way, I haven't masked, and there'll be a reason for that. I can put the figure. There's also a dog here, and I'll put those in later. Maybe not on film. So we can now go to the pinky colours. So we can go to a cadmium orange. Make sure your brush is really clean for these colours. I'm just going straight into the pan with my Chinese brush, and so I can add orange to the yellow and to the beach down here. And this will go paler as it dries. So I'm just adding it in strips. I'm not putting it on as a flat wash. And we've got a bit of orange graduating out here. So just start it off and keep it with a tissue handy so that if need be, where you've got drips, you can just dry it off a little bit like that. And I'm going to put more orange down on this beach. And again, it is darker, but where it catches the light, it's got a warmth to the colour, so that orange will help. So now I can rinse that brush, ready for the next colour. Or if you've got another brush, if you're going to change to blues, I would use a second brush, unless you've got your first brush totally clear. So we've got it's really got a little bit grey in here, but it's a sunset blue. So I'm going to go using my cobalt blue, and I'm going to make it a little bit pinky by adding some madderlate to this. So you could use rose madder. If you haven't got that, you can always use a little bit of alizarin crimson. So it's just to produce a mauvey blue. And let's start at the top. And the trick here is not to overpaint the stronger areas where you've got yellow and where you've got orange, because they'll mix and produce a sort of brown sludge. So the trick of this is to put the colour on. I need the brush a little bit wetter, or the sky a little bit wetter, so just going back in with water here. And I'm going to break it down and leave some gaps. So at the moment I'm just adding water to my colour to graduate it in. I'll move this up so you can see a bit better. Right, I think we'll just control that. So then I take another brush, a clean brush, which I put in water, and I'm just squeezing it dry, so it's just damp. My collapse will soon here. Just damp, just a tiny bit more water, so I can just soften these edges with a clear brush with no colour on it. So I'm trying to connect the colour. Sometimes your wash allows this to happen, but the trick is to do it without getting a little bit of colour in here, without getting it to go green or dark. So just a damp brush and a bit more damp over here. I'd probably be in more control if I had this as a flatter pad on my table, or a very gentle slope. So the steep slope like this, it's a little bit more risky. Now I know that the blue in my photograph is a little bit of a cooler blue, more a cerulean blue, but I just want this to be more of an evening sky. So just almost going to try and get the sun to dip into the sea to create the idea of a sunset. So just going that little bit deeper. And if you want to change your colours a bit to suit your mood, do whatever you like.
Yellow is still wet, is it?
Yellow is still damp.
Damp?
Yeah, it's still damp.
Yeah.
So before I go down to this, I need that to dry off a tiny bit. So I could take this. It doesn't really matter if it goes into the sea, because we're going to create a harder line on top. Well, another colour I'm going to use, going back to my yellow brush, is to get the slight bit of pink. So I'm going to go back to my get my pink nice and there. I've got two pinks. So I've got rose and madder. I think I'm going to use my carmine. Actually, I think the carmine is a little bit more delicate colour. So here we go. So we're just going to put in here where I've done this, joining up a little bit of this carmine. A bit too much, clean brush, and just soften it in. So just to get this graduation of colour. And the other trick you can do with your carmine is, if you want to hint at pinks in the sky now, again you can just run it straight into some damp areas, but just check I might be putting too much water in. It could cauliflower.
No.
It's got that look about it. It's definitely got a dangerous look about it. It's looking me in the eye and saying, I'm going to beat you. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see. The principle here is good, but have I told you that 1 in 3 watercolours might succeed, 2 out of 3 definitely won't. So we might think this is a number 2 or 3.
We understand.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's just feeding it in. It might survive. If it doesn't, probably the best thing is to let it dry. When it's totally dry, I can re-wet it and just soften out any hard lines. No, but this is the danger. But here, I'm going to come in with my sea. So let's just do the softer colours down here while they're drying off. So we've got a mauve colour down here. So again, we can mix our blue and carmine, or blue and... so this is the beach. And I'm just going to put this on with a drier approach. So I'm just painting right down here for the paler colours. Do you see the brush is almost skating over the surface, producing some sparkly effects? And it's all down to how much water you're putting in. So when you're practicing this sort of technique, what you really want to do is make it's really a magical effect. You can't, if you try and copy it exactly, it won't ever produce this sort of sparkly, magical look. So if I can get that right. Now this is supposed to be the paler bit. Let's go back to my blue brush. The beach over here goes a little bit bluer. And perhaps down here it goes a bit bluer too. Down in this section. So I'm just adding a slightly stronger cobalt pink mix as I go down the edge here. And again, any little bits I leave behind, I'm not worried about that. A bit of sparkle is good. And so now we want to get into the sand. I've got a bit of the glowy colour here. Let's go back to my pink brush. And the sand actually is a mixture of, this is English red, which is a very strong colour. I can brush it to show you. So that's what we're going to get. That's too orangey. So, but we're going to use it as the basis. In fact, I'm going to mix that into the residue of my mauve colour. And this is slightly damp. Let's just come across and see if we can get the right effect. So applying the brush, really pushing it in to lose the grain here. I want a bit of grain in the middle, but not at the edge. And that's gone slightly too strong. So I just use my control brush here to soften it back out again. This is the damp brush, remember. So I just connect it in. And whilst it's damp, and now it's all evenly damp with the colour, I can deepen the colour as well and come into this stronger brownie mix. So we've got English red. I'm going to put more English red in the pan. I'm going to add some of my madder to it, and I'm going to add some of my cobalt blue. So I'm actually sticking with pretty much the same colours, but just going stronger and stronger into those colours. So now we go in like this, same colours, just much more. And because the surface is damp, I can effectively get this sort of graduation from the dark beach colours to the pale beach colours. And I'm going to bring this right up, one to the edge of the sand here, but also there's a bit more sand through here where I've got masking to protect the edge of the beach meeting the water. So I'll leave that strip, that works. And just bring a bit of this colouring down here as well, just to balance. So now we have got all this like a seaweed. Actually, it's sand that has been dug up by children and made little sort of runners that it could be seaweed. Those darks I'll put on in a minute. I'll put them on pretty much dry. Let's get back to the sea. Go back to my blue brush, and it's a purple sea. So I'm designing lots of cobalt blue. I could use a different blue, but I'm just going to keep the colours pretty much simple, the same as I've used for the rest of the painting. So I'm adding a little bit of Madder Lake and trying to make it slightly more blue than pink. And now to come in for this horizon, the simple trick is the old ruler trick. You get the ruler and place it here, upside down. I think the sky is dry enough to take the ruler. And now I'm going to have the sea coming in. I'll just try it here. I might raise this up. So let's just zoom in a bit on the camera so you can see what's going on. So we've got the ruler, and the thing here is this is dry enough now to take this. It's a fully loaded brush for painting this bit of the sea, and I'm just going to literally run it underneath that ruler, straight across everything. Take the ruler very carefully. You've got a straight horizon. If it's not quite straight, well, don't worry about it, because we can always remount the work to get it dead straight. So now I can just keep going down. But actually, I'm going to now rinse that brush out. Not totally, so now it's damp, so I'm just going to graduate that colour as I come down. You can see the colours rolling down. Dry the brush up a bit more.
What colour is that?
It's a mixture of cobalt blue with the Madder Lake, plus it had a little bit of the English red left in it from the beach. So I used the residue of the beach, but strengthened it just with the, so it's a sort of browny purple. Yeah. And so we just come back into it. Now, what we're doing here, before the masking fluid comes off, I'm just looking to see if I can create any other texture in the sea. By that, it's just a question of drying and catching this just before it dries. And to do this, I'm going to use a sable brush, a sable flat brush. This is actually a 3/8, I think it is. Again, I wet it in clean water, just damp. And because we've got these waves coming in, I'm now going to take this damp brush through the sea in strips. I'm simplifying, but it's just drying it enough, but not so much. So what we're doing is we're getting a soft edge, but we're getting strong contrasts. Give a nice dramatic effect. So I'm just controlling that bottom edge. Again, rinse the brush when you've taken the colour off. And I'm going to go above that with it, squeeze the brush so it's absolutely nice and flat, and being a sable it will hold its edge. And I'm going to take another thinner line above that. This is for a wave further out. So just as it starts to dry, if you do this too soon it just floats back together. So as it starts to dry, I'm squeezing the brush just to take out colour, go back again. So we're getting a nice sort of wavy effect. There is actually, in my source reference, I think there's an oil tanker or two out on the horizon, and we have got a headland over here, so if you do mess up your horizon, you can always add a little bit of land in the distance. I'm not going to bother with that now, but it will be a very dilute version of these colours. Notice, by the way, my dark beach has paled down considerably since I put it on. That's going to happen in any wash. So I think what I'll do is let this totally dry, come back to it.